if you're sick of wondering, can I even, eat this? If you've ever thought, I don't even know what I'm allowed to eat anymore, then this is for you. This was created for you. And I'm going to be walking you through all of this in the next 10 minutes. Now, most of you have known me for many years, right? But there's also a lot of newbies here, right? So those of you that don't know me, my name is Chris Feekins, and I am a type 2 diabetic specialist. My area of expertise is helping ladies just like you lose 20, 30, 40, 60 pounds plus, lower your A1C and achieve clinical remission, right? A normal A1C off all medications. And at this point, we've helped over 400 ladies achieve exactly that, and thousands other ladies lose weight, ladies that aren't a part, of my coaching program, like many of you watching this right here. So let's get into it without any further ado. So this is a no rules, no shame way to finally feel clear around food again. Remove the guilt, remove the emotion, right? Again, if you've ever been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, pre-diabetes, or maybe if you're just trying to avoid pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes, many of you have probably thought, I don't even know what I'm allowed to eat anymore, right? If you've thought that, you're not alone, right? In fact, when we ask women what they struggle with most, one answer comes up again and again, and that is knowing what to eat. That's why I'm sat here recording this video. It's not because, maybe that, some people might want to know about this information. No, you guys, you ladies are telling me every single day, this is what you want help with. So this is why I'm here to deliver this and to give you all of the answers from start to finish. All right. No fluff. And here's the part that I want you to hear incredibly clearly. This confusion around knowing what to eat is not because you're doing something wrong. It's because you've been taught to think about food in a way that can't work long term. It can't work long term for the rest of your life. So let me explain why knowing what to eat sometimes feels so hard. Most women with type 2 diabetes have been given advice that sounds like this: cut carbs, avoid sugar, eat low glycemic index, which are foods which are digested and released, slowly in regards to sugar, right? Follow this plan. No bread, no pasta, no treats, no white carbs. And at first, of course, you try to follow it, but very quickly, food starts to feel like a test. You're constantly failing, right? You overthink meals. You second guess every bite. You feel guilty even when you're trying your best. None of this is lack of discipline. This is decision fatigue and trying to live by unsustainable rules. And you're being asked to micromanage food without a clear system, right? These rules sound fine at first, but try and stick to that for the next 4, 5, 6 months, right? And then you blame yourself. Maybe I don't want it enough. Maybe I don't have enough motivation. Maybe I don't have the willpower. It's none of those things. It's because the approach is just too difficult to stick to for 90% of people. Can some people stick to these highly restrictive diets? Yeah, they can, but that depends upon your personal preferences around food. It's got to suit you. It's got to be like you can't try and wear someone else's shoes that's a different fit, right? You've got your own life, your own personal preferences, right? Your own lifestyle, the things that you like to do, right? Your own job, your own routine, your own schedule. And most of the time, these overly restrictive diets the shoe doesn't fit. It's just that simple. And there's nothing wrong with you. That's the case for 90% of people, most people, right? So don't get in your head about that. You're not any different. You're the same as most people, all right? So the biggest lie you've been told about food, right? Here's the belief that quietly keeps people very, very stuck. There are good foods and there are bad foods. That's an absolute load of nonsense. Absolute load of nonsense, right? There's no such thing as bad food. If you continue to assign morality to food, you are going to continue to indoctrinate yourself down a path of an incredibly broken relationship with food. There's food that's more nutritious, of course there is, and there's food that's less nutritious, but those less nutritious foods aren't bad. If you eat them every now and then, that's not a bad thing. If most of your diet comprises of, nutritiously void foods, then probably not going to be great long term. But those foods, aren't bad. There's nothing wrong with those foods, right? Apologies, I've got something stuck in my eye, it seems. But there's no such thing as good or bad food. So moving forwards, any of you guys that are watching this, listening to me, I really want to urge you to move away from assigning morality and labeling foods as good or bad, because that is only going to, again, indoctrinate you down a path of an incredibly broken relationship with food, right? Should you live on donuts and sweets? Of course not. But will a donut every now and then kill you? Of course not. That's absurd. Absolutely absurd. It's not going to. What matters is your diet as a whole is what really matters, right? So there's no such thing anymore as good or bad. If you want to heal your relationship with food and, move towards your goal of, losing weight, right? And being healthy and achieving remission, if that is a goal for you, right? Because, once you believe that there's good or bad, everything else just falls apart. Because bad foods, these foods that you label as bad, they don't disappear, right? They're still in your house. They're still in work. Your husband still brings them in. Your grandkids still bring them in. Your kids still bring them in, right? And now all of a sudden they're forbidden. They're banned, right? But guess what? You still eat them because you're a human being, right? And forbidden foods create restriction, cravings, binges, guilt. I'll start again tomorrow, right? Just because you've labeled them as bad, guess what? You're still going to eat them because you're a human being. You're a human being. You're still going to eat them. But now there's all this guilt and shame, and you're beating yourself up. Then you end up down this rabbit warren of, shame. Oh, it's just messy. We don't want any of that nonsense, right? We want to skip over all of that, right? This cycle doesn't lower blood sugar. In fact, it keeps insulin resistance exactly where it is. It keeps you stuck. So instead of asking what foods are allowed and not allowed, we need to ask a better question. And the question that actually matters, the question is not, can I eat this? That's not the question. The real question is, how does this fit? Because food, individual foods, food isn't the problem. Context is. And once you understand that, everything becomes far simpler. And it's going to make sense as I divulge into this in just a moment, as soon as I've had a sip of my old H2O here. So there are 3 filters that make food decisions easier, right? And I call this the trifecta rule, right? Instead of food rules, instead of food labels or meal plans, every choice passes through 3 simple filters. Again, not rules, not restrictions, not filters. It's called the trifecta rule, but it's very, very, very flexible, right? The first one is portion. And this sounds obvious, but it's how much you eat. Almost any food can fit. Any food can fit. What causes problems is these 3 things together. So bear with me. What causes problems isn't eating a food. It's all of these things here. It's eating too much of it at once first, though, right? A small portion of something you enjoy is very different from turning it into a full-blown eating episode. Most blood sugar issues aren't caused by what someone eats there and then. They're caused by how much shows up on the plate long term. We're not talking about blood sugar response now. We're talking about getting off your medications in the next 6, 7, 8 months. That's what we're talking about here. And the first problem is portion, right? Can you eat a donut? Yeah. Can you eat 3? No, right? You just can't. You simply just can't, right? And if you struggle with that, there's a reason why. And I could do a whole nother lesson on why you're struggling to eat the food that you love without, over consuming. But anyway, the first is portion. The second is frequency, how often you eat it. Your body doesn't respond to one meal long term, right? Do you think your A1C now is dictated by a donut that you had 4 weeks ago? Of course it's not. It's insignificant. If you eat a donut every single day, though, that's going to impact your A1C result today, right? But the donut that you ate 3 weeks ago, that's not going to affect your A1C today. That's insignificant. It doesn't matter. So not only is it portion, how much of it you eat, it's also how often you eat it, right? Again, your body doesn't respond to one meal long term. It responds to patterns. Something eaten occasionally gives a very different signal than something eaten every single day. Enjoyment is fine. Repetition without awareness is where insulin resistance stops improving. Progress, or lack of progress, comes from what you repeat, not what you do every now and then. So again, a donut, one donut, fine. That's fine. That's no problem, right? That's portion. A donut every single day, that's not going to be good. That's frequency. That's how often you eat it. And then balance. What else you eat that day, that week, etc. This is the piece that almost nobody teaches. High calorie, high carb foods don't mean you failed. They mean something else has to be lighter somewhere. You don't add indulgent foods on top of all of the other indulgent foods. You balance around them. One heavier choice simply means other choices need to be calmer. This is how food freedom works without chaos. If we're going to eat foods that are high in calories and high in carbs, you can eat them, right? But we've got to reduce calories and carbs elsewhere. But that doesn't mean you've got to track what you eat, but we still need to be aware around what foods are high calorie, high carb, not just for now, but for long-term, lifelong results. We need to be aware of these things, right? And if you're totally not aware of that, and you haven't got a clue what calories and carbs are in foods, well, you're not alone, right? But that might be something for us to upskill in, something for us to get better and more aware at for our long-term health, long-term longevity, right? Okie dokie. So balance. What else you eat? Right, the donut's fine today, but can you have a donut and then French toast for breakfast and then pasta for dinner and then pizza for lunch? No, you can't. Right? You can have all of those things, but not all in the same day. That's right, not all in the same day. Can you eat them all day, every day? No, you can't. And can you eat a big, huge plate of those things? No, you can't, but we can enjoy them with control. And again, if you struggle with control, there's a reason why you struggle with control, and there's a solution to that. Doesn't mean you can't do it. It means there's another thing that we have to address, at the same time, right? At the same time. If you was to ask, sorry for switching between cameras here, but if you were to ask any of the ladies that I coach, are you on a diet? They would all say, absolutely not. They all eat their favorite everyday foods. And like I said, we've already helped just one-to-one over 400 ladies achieve remission. Those ladies haven't cut out anything. They haven't cut out any foods. We've taught them, we've shown them how they're able to manage the food that they love. And I feel you watching this now, this is the same thing for you too, right? We need to learn how to do that. And why this bit here, this next section is why what I do isn't, a meal plan, and why that's a good thing. If you're wanting someone to just tell you, eat these exact foods at these exact times, that's never, ever, ever going to work. Because the truth is, generic meal plans fail women with type 2 diabetes because everyone has different calorie needs, different carb tolerance, different insulin resistance levels, different lifestyles, stress, sleep, and medications. Your life isn't just a meal plan. Things change. What happens when you can't have that for dinner? When you're out late? When this happens? When that happens? When this happens? Life isn't able to just follow a meal plan, a meal plan, a meal plan, a meal plan. That's never going to work. You're not going to be able to just follow that every single day because things change, right? Plans change, things change, circumstances change. It's just a road to nowhere. And even if it did work, you're not going to follow a meal plan forever, are you? Of course not. That'd be absurd. So what are you going to do when you're no longer following the meal plan? Genuinely, what are you going to do? You haven't learned anything. You've just followed these foods. Now, you return back to what you know, and what you know gets you right back to where you were because it didn't teach you the practical implementations around how to actually eat food, right? Cool. I hope that makes sense. Meal plans are not what you need, not what you need whatsoever. So, what's the missing piece that most people never get? Fat loss, lowering your A1C happens inside of personal ranges, not extremes, not perfection, not restriction. Ranges that follow fat loss, reduced insulin resistance, stable blood sugars, and real life. Your real perfectly imperfect, messy life, right? Because that's just the reality of it, right? It has to suit you. It has to be like a bit of molding clay. Because if it's not, then it's never going to work, right? Guessing those ranges doesn't work. Google doesn't know them because Google doesn't know you. Past diets didn't adjust them. That's why so many women feel like they've tried everything when really they've never just had the real clarity. If you'd have genuinely tried everything, you'd already be at your goal. Right? That's the fallacy of it, right? So the relief that you're allowed to feel. Again, you don't need perfect meals. You don't need to give up the foods you love. You don't need to track what you eat forever. What you need is a simple decision framework, clear boundaries, and support applying it to your life. Because when food stops feeling scary, consistency becomes automatic. And that's when weight loss and blood sugar, changes finally stick. Right now, obviously, you can go ahead and apply all of these different principles, the portion, the balance, the frequency, work on removing the labels around food, right? We no longer want the good or the bad. We've got more nutritious and less nutritious. Whenever you catch yourself, like, oh, this is bad. No, we want to reframe that. What matters is how much of it we eat, how often we eat it, and what else you eat, right? So you can go ahead, apply all of those things. If any of you ladies have questions, right, if you want me to expand on this, if you want me to personalize it towards you a little bit, we are offering some free coaching calls. Now, obviously, there's almost 10,000 of you inside of the Facebook group, right? I'm only one person. I can't stretch myself too thin. So we're only offering some of these, right? So if you want to take advantage of one of these free coaching calls, all it is, just so you know, is a chance for us to gain some clarity, some personalization. It is a casual 10, maybe 15-minute chat, right? Where we get to delve into what you need to lose 6 to 10 pounds and lower your blood sugars by 30 to 40 points in the next 30 days, right? If you want to take advantage of one of these blood sugar reset calls, again, it's just a free coaching call, 10 to 15 minutes. Send me a message saying reset. What I'll do is, sorry, pardon me, I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, it seems. What I want you to do is this form, this whole document, you're going to get a copy of this right down below. You'll be able to get a copy of this so you can print it off, do anything you want with it. And I'll put a little button that you can click just to send me a message to make it really easy, right? But all you got to do is shoot me a message saying reset. If you want to take advantage of any of that. Like I said, we'll grab a cup of tea, cup of coffee, have a casual, 10 to 15 minute chat. And then I can send you a bunch of free resources after too. So we'll identify what your biggest challenges are so that then I can match those challenges with the right free resource that you then, get to keep forever, essentially. All right. So shoot me a message, reset. Any questions, any concerns, all you got to do is send me a message. I'll wrap this up so it's not too long, but have a fantastic day. All right. Take care. Au revoir.